Okay, so today we're talking about freight spend. When you hear that term, you automatically associate that with shippers if you are a broker. Shippers are always concerned about how much money they're spending on freight to move freight from point A to point B. How much is it costing? So when you are working with a shipper, one of their main concerns are going to be getting some price consistency from you, and of course getting prices that they want to pay to move their freight from point A to point B. And of course, shippers always want to pay the lowest price, right? Yeah, of course. So now we as freight brokers, we cannot always satisfy the shipper and give them the lowest price, because that's not always going to work for you, and it's certainly not going to work for your carriers. So we have to understand pricing and be able to price loads so that everybody wins. And when I say everybody, I mean the broker, the shipper, and the carrier. We cannot price loads just to satisfy the shipper, or we won't be in business very long. How do you get price consistency? How do you price loads that your shipper is going to look at and say, hey, I can work with that? How do you do that? Well, first of all, it's about understanding what your shipper wants, understanding lanes and what those lanes are priced at, and how you go to your shipper when it's time to price those lanes. How do you negotiate with that shipper? Okay, so now when it really boils down to it, when you go in and you look at a lane and you go in and do your assessment, it's basically when you give that price, you've done your homework, then that's what you can move that load for. When we go in and start cutting prices to satisfy shippers, then you're going to be doing one or two things. Number one, cutting into your own profit, because you've already priced the load so that you can make a profit. So when you cut into that price, now you're cutting into your own profit. Or you're going to cut that load and then cause problems where you're not going to be able to get that load covered by a carrier. So we have to be careful when it comes down to cutting prices to satisfy shippers. We cannot just cut the price to satisfy the shipper. When we're cutting prices, we're always got to understand that we're cutting into our profit or the carrier's profit. Because you set that price based on a certain criteria. Whatever your assessment says, that lane should be priced at, that's what you come back and price the lane at, so that you can make a profit. Of course, your carrier is happy and your shipper is happy, not just the shipper. Because if we just make the shipper happy, we're going to have some problems getting loads moved. You have freight because shippers are willing to work with you because your prices are low, but you don't have assets, truckers, to move that freight. And when I say assets, I mean trucks itself. Okay, so understand that. Make sure that you have a good understanding of how to price loads, and when it comes down to slashing those prices, you're only going to be able to slash those prices, if it still will work for your carrier and of course yourself. Sometimes we slash prices so much to where we cut our profit out. We're making $0. Carrier is still getting paid. Shipper is exceptionally happy, but you, the broker, you're not making any money. So you can only do that for so long. You cannot continue to cut prices to where your profit margin is significantly affected, I should say. So make sure that you understand when it comes down to cutting prices what exactly you're doing when you decide to do that. Now, some people say that, I just want to get a load moved. I'm not really concerned about price. I just want to get my load moved, so I can get one on the board. I get that. I did that when I first got started. I wasn't really concerned about pricing. I wasn't concerned about, how much money I was going to make on the load. That eventually changed. It had to change because I was getting loads moved, but my price or my profit margin was low because I was cutting prices to satisfy shippers just to get the load. So keep that in mind. When you first start out, you may do some price cutting so that you can get loads, but always remember, as a freight broker, you have to make a profit. You have a service that you're providing. So the carrier wouldn't even get that load had you not gone out and done the legwork in order to be able to sell him the load. Because you have to go to the shipper. You have to talk to that shipper about his business, about his load movement, about the problems that he faces, and then, of course, provide solutions to those problems. And we know that's not necessarily something that's just easy. We have to put a lot of work into that. So when we work, we want to get paid. When carriers work, they want to get paid. So we want to make sure that we are priced correctly so we can pay ourselves properly and, of course, pay our carriers. Now, I just recently talked to one of my shippers, and we were talking about price consistency within a particular lane. As I said earlier, shippers are always concerned about freight spend, how much money they're spending to get their freight moved from point A to point B. So what happened with us is we were having a conversation with our shipper after we had moved the load for almost a year now, and we were talking about some things that we can improve on. And one of the things that he mentioned was price consistency. He needs price consistency in specific lanes. And what he meant by that was he wants contract rates. Instead of, it being a certain price in the summertime and that price changes in the wintertime or throughout the year, different things happen, prices change. He wants a contract price where, he's paying one price for a 12-month period of time or whatever the contract says. Usually it's about 12 months. Now, you can definitely go out and give him a contract. That's not a problem at all when you go in and look at those lanes. But remember, you have to price it correctly, because you can be moving a load in the summertime and moving that load for $2,400, and then in the wintertime, you can move that same load for $3,600. So you're going to have to come up with a price that's going to work throughout the year, okay? Because, of course, the shippers want the convenience of paying $2,400 in the summertime. They don't want the inconvenience of paying $3,600 in the wintertime. So they want to be able to take advantage of the low price in the wintertime, in the summertime, but they don't want to pay the high price in the winter. So they want a contract that would say, I'm running this load from January to December, and this is the amount that I'm running it at. Okay. So now if you're doing it at 24 in the summer and 36 in the winter, then you're going to have to come up with a price that's going to work throughout the entire year. So that's what we're going to talk about on our next webinar. And we're going to have that webinar on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, like we always do, and you're invited. So until that time, see you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.